Okay. All right. Wow. May the force be with you, Kyle. Well, I got to say that when I was in college, undergrad, they couldn't fit my full name into the system. So my name, Galvin Deleon Guerrero, got shortened into Galvin Guerrero. And because of that, my good friends started calling me G for Galvin Guerrero, GG, right? So I feel very at home with the UOGG here. And on that note, I want to thank you, Dr. Christ, for really having faith in sustainability and continuing the great work started by Dr. Underwood. And you've got a great team there. Dr. Shelton, thank you so much for welcoming the NMC and NMI contingent here with such warm hospitality. And Susie, oh, you were inspiring yesterday. Thank you very much. And I know they're not with us, but I want to give a special shout out to Governor Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Tenorio for really putting their money and their resources where their mouth is by taking on this effort. So if you don't mind, I prefer that you can see the great beard that I have growing, which is making up for my brilliant head. So Dr. Shelton asked me to come here today to share with you the story of Northern Marianas College and how that ties into the efforts throughout Micronesia and throughout the world, really. And recently we had an accreditation review, and we decided to prepare a short video, a 4-minute video that kind of tells the NMC story probably much better than I could. So if we could play that video now, just to give everyone some context of who we are and where we've been. So, NMC, we're a small college. We have how are we doing? Oops, I didn't do anything. Oh no, hey, let's go back. Hey, okay, there we go. Okay, we're a small college, 1,400 students, 167 employees, 3 campuses on our 3 islands. But we're the small college that could, right? And it reminds me of this very famous parable that you've probably heard many times, the starfish parable. It's it's based on a story called The Star Thrower by Lauren Isley. And in this story, there's one night, a high tide washes thousands of starfish along this beach. And this little girl in the morning starts going up to each starfish, picking it up and throwing it back out into the ocean. Because she's worried that as soon as the noon sun, we will heat them up and kill them. So here she is, picking up one starfish, throwing it out, picking up another starfish, throwing it out, picking up another starfish, and throwing it out. And this old man is walking along the beach and goes up to her and says, "There are thousands of starfish. How are you supposed to save them all?" So she looks at him. He's got this puzzled look on his face. She looks down at the starfish on the beach. She reaches down and she throws it out and she says, "I made a difference for that one." And I like this story because it's a story about agency. And as Kyle mentioned earlier, I've been a teacher for a long, long time. And whenever I teach history, I love to help students redefine the experience of marginalized, disadvantaged, oppressed people. And I like to reframe the understanding from victimhood to agency. So we take a look at the Native American experience, right? And the typical story is that the white people arrived and decimated them with weapons, disease, and military firepower. But we know that the historical record is different. We know that there was a lot more agency with people like famous leaders like Montezuma trying first diplomacy with Hernan Cortez. We also know that with African Americans, it could be easy to see them as an enslaved people that were then subjugated to discrimination and segregation. But we know that pioneers like Harriet Tubman were amazing leaders guiding formerly enslaved peoples to freedom through the Underground Railroad. And then when we look at the story of Hawaii, right? Again, the story might be the white man arrived and killed everyone off. But we know that King Kamehameha, after years of bloody conflict, he united the islands, right? And called for the Hawaiian people to work together. So I love teaching students this because I want them to not only have a better, more accurate understanding of history, I want them to embrace that kind of agency in their own lives. Because if it's possible in history with what we consider to be marginalized, oppressed peoples, it's definitely possible for a teenager grappling with their parents who are telling them what they can and cannot do. But more importantly, when we look at the world that we're living in, it's easy to embrace the identity of the victim. Hank, that was just an amazing presentation, and I love how you don't give in to this sense of victimhood. Like, you as starting in Hawaii and going throughout the whole world, you believe we can make a change. But there are many people who are resigned to their fate, who think we can't stop things, and before we know it, our islands are going to sink. And then when we look at what's happening with the global economy, we think that these are economic forces beyond our control, and there's nothing we can do. And then this recent pandemic seems to suggest that there are these geopolitical forces way beyond our control that ultimately paralyze us. And it's easy, it's tempting to give in to that sense of victimhood. And at NMC, we've had similar challenges. As you saw from the video, countless typhoons, and we've had 4 nationally declared disasters in the past 6 years. the worst of which was Super Typhoon Yutu, which blew away 85% of our main campus on Saipan. And we have students that are taking classes in tents, basically pods. So it's easy for NMC to give into that. And when we look at the effects of the global economy on the Northern Marianas, it's also easy to think that there's nothing we can do, right? Whether it's a failing industry that leaves workers unemployed and unpaid for work that they've done, or a tourism industry that's killed by the pandemic. And then, of course, there's the pandemic itself, which is just radically challenged us, not just as a people, but as my colleagues in higher education and K through 12 know, it's really challenged our understanding of how students can get an education. It's forced us to rethink and redo what we do. So it's easy, even within that context in the Northern Marianas, to give in to that victimhood. But the experience of Northern Marianas College is not one of victimization, is not one of victimhood. It is one of agency. As you saw in the video, we have secured close to $100 million to build brand new facilities on our main campus. And what you see here on the far left slide is an architectural rendering of the first building that's going to go up that we're breaking ground this summer. It's the Student Center, because we want students to know that they are the center of all that we do. Yes, let's give them a big round of applause. And despite the challenges of the global economy and how it's just devastated the local economy, we know of many government agencies that went through serious challenges, austerity measures, furloughs, laying people off. I am very proud that the Northern Marianas College did not furlough or lay off one single employee. Every employee was kept employed. And when we look at what the pandemic has done to higher education, we know that across the nation, enrollment in colleges and universities has plummeted during this pandemic. But at NMC, not only has the pandemic not caused that, not only has our enrollment steadied, it's actually increased. And since Super Typhoon Yutu, our enrollment has continued to increase, and our student achievement rates have improved as well, with graduation rates doubling for our two-year degree programs. And as sort of validation, not that we needed it, for all of this, we recently learned that we earned an historic 8-year accreditation term with our accrediting agency, the longest term in NMC's history. So, what all of this has taught us at NMC is that we need to embrace stewardship. And I'm very happy to say that our Board of Regents and our college stakeholders have embraced stewardship as the central core value of our new strategic master plan. And what I love about this is that it reflects the values of the Pacifica cultures. So there are 3 main planks to this stewardship. The first is to take care of our community, because that's what we do in the Pacific, right? We take care of each other. We don't leave anyone behind. This is how we roll, or as I like to say, this is how we sail. Okay? So that is a core part, that is the core thing that we're going to do at the college. We're going to take care of our community. But we're also going to take care of our resources. If it's one thing we all know about living on an island with limited resources, is that we're very resourceful. So we are also going to exercise and practice stewardship by taking care of our resources, because that's what we Pacific Islanders do. But probably the most important thing that we do, and the most important thing we're going to be doing as part of our strategic master plan, is the third strategic priority, which is to take care of our people. Because if we're talking about resources, we know that in the islands, the most important resource is our people. And so these three priorities, take care of our community, take care of our resources, and take care of our people, are really at the core of this stewardship. And it's something that we share with our brothers and sisters from Guahan and from the entire Micronesia and throughout the entire Pacific. And it's why we're very excited to share this at this sustainability conference, because that is really what it's all about, is sustaining each other and sustaining ourselves. Now, that's agency, right? But I want to talk about shared agency and tell you a quick story. Now, some of you, raise your hand if you've ever heard of Saipan's 500 Sales Program. Okay, some of you, right? So I find what is utterly fascinating is how this came to be. So Miguel Lopez de Legazpi was on the San Pedro in 1565, and this is what he wrote, so I don't have this memorized. We were no more than 2 leagues from the island when 50 or 60 proas under sail surrounded the fleet. These proas were furnished with lateen sails of palm mats and were as light as the wind. The day had scarcely begun when a great number of these proas appeared about us, more than 400 or 500 around the ships. And I'm reminded of what Dr. Christ said early on in this conference. We know that the earth is an island, and maybe that's why we islanders get it. So if we are to share this agency like these 500 sails did when they greeted Legazpi, imagine what we can do together. And it reminds me of what Susie said yesterday, and I hope I get this right. I even had to write it down. Pupukahihi holomua. Together, united, we progress, right? And that is what we need to do as Pacific Islanders. We need to be agents of change. And it reminds me of what the great poet Julian Ogden has said in his recent book, The Properties of Perpetual Light. For far too long, we in Micronesia, which literally means small islands, have let outsiders do all kinds of framing for us, spatial, cultural, political. That's a death trap. The truth is, there's nothing small about the greatness from which we come. We come from wayfinders, seafarers who sliced through millions of miles of open ocean with little more than curved sticks and cowrie shells. An enormous map in our minds, one that accounted for every island and every swell of sea, every bird and every star that shivers in the distance. If that's not magic, I don't know what is. Our islands may be small, but our hearts are big. Our people may be small in number, but our legacy, our heritage runs as deep as the Marianas Trench. And our vision, our islands may be very few, but our dreams, our visions, and our ambition are as big as the thousands and millions of miles of ocean that we have traversed in our history. So let us sail on as agents of change. Thank you, and may the force be with you.